My wife of 7 years, Emily, cheated on me with my younger brother, Nathan. I never thought I'd be writing something like this. Even typing those words feels like I'm swallowing broken glass. But here it is. Let me start from the beginning. Emily and I have been together for 10 years, married for 7. We have a beautiful 5-year-old daughter, Lily. For the most part, I thought we were happy. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I genuinely believed we were solid. But then, without me realizing it, a storm had been brewing right under my nose. It started with small signs, things I brushed off as insignificant. Looking back, they were the first cracks in what I thought was a solid foundation. If only I had paid more attention. Emily is smart, funny, and incredibly practical, always grounded in her work as a marketing executive. But recently, she started changing. At first, I thought nothing of it. She began dressing differently, more stylishly, I suppose. Not that I minded. I wanted her to feel good about herself. But it was the little things that started to bother me. She began spending more time on her phone, locking it the moment I walked into the room. She started staying late at work more often, something I wasn't used to. When she'd come home, she was always in a rush to change, as if something was on her mind. When I'd ask her about it, she'd brush it off with an excuse, a late meeting, a difficult project, or the need to catch up on work. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her. But then there was Nathan. Nathan, my younger brother by 3 years, had always been a big part of my life. Growing up, we were inseparable, partners in crime against our parents, friends, and anyone who got in our way. While I took the more traditional route, getting a steady job after college and settling into family life, Nathan was the opposite. He bounced from job to job, relationship to relationship, living with an energy that was both contagious and exhausting. But we were close. We always had been. Even as adults, Nathan was always there for family dinners, playing the role of the fun, carefree uncle to Lily. The guy who would come over for an impromptu game night, cracking jokes and bringing energy to a room that otherwise would have been quiet. Lately, though, something was off with Nathan. He was distant, cancelling plans with little explanation. When he did show up, his usually charming, gregarious self was nowhere to be found. Instead, he seemed nervous, distracted, like he didn't want to be there. At first, I wrote it off as stress from work or whatever else was going on in his chaotic life. But then I started noticing the way Emily looked at him when he came around. It wasn't just the way she smiled or laughed at his jokes. It was the way her eyes lingered, the way her shoulders relaxed when he spoke. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it unsettled me. One evening, I came home from work early, and as I walked into the living room, I noticed Emily's face light up when Nathan walked through the door. They exchanged a look that I couldn't quite place. Something was wrong. My instincts were telling me that there was something between them, something I wasn't seeing. But I didn't want to believe it. I thought I was just being paranoid. Maybe I was overthinking it. After all, they were family, and she was just happy to see her brother-in-law. But there were other moments too. Emily started spending more time with Nathan. When they were in the same room, the chemistry between them was palpable, even if it was just a quiet conversation over dinner. They'd touch each other more than was normal, brush hands, or linger just a second too long in a hug. I didn't want to acknowledge what was happening, but the pieces were falling into place. The turning point came one evening, when Emily's phone buzzed while we were having dinner. She jumped at the sound, immediately reaching for it. I wasn't suspicious at first, but then I noticed the look on her face. She had a brief guilty expression before she quickly glanced at the screen and then at me. The message was from Nathan. Same time tomorrow. She gave me a quick, forced smile and said, "Oh, it's Nathan. He's asking about a camping trip he wants to plan with you." A camping trip? Since when did Nathan ever want to go camping with me? We hadn't planned a trip in ages, and I had never heard Emily mention it. But I let it slide. I trusted her. That night, though, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Why was she so defensive? Why had her mood shifted so quickly? I had to know more. For the next few weeks, I kept my eyes open. I noticed more odd behavior, Emily coming home late more often, disappearing for long stretches of time, and once, when I picked up her phone to call her, I found that she had deleted all the messages. It was an innocent enough mistake, I told myself. Maybe I was just paranoid, or maybe it was nothing, but something inside me refused to let it go. I confronted her once, trying to remain calm. "Is everything okay with you and Nathan?" I asked casually. "You seem a little close lately." Her face flushed and she quickly denied it, laughing awkwardly. "Oh, you know Nathan, he's just been really busy, that's all. We're just catching up, nothing to worry about." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But as the days passed, I couldn't help but feel that something was wrong. My brother, my wife, both of them acting strangely. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was happening behind my back. But what? The final straw came on a rainy Thursday evening. Emily had texted me earlier, telling me she'd be late because of a work dinner. As I sat on the couch, watching TV and trying to distract myself from my spiraling thoughts, I got a feeling, a gut instinct, that something wasn't right. Maybe it was the way she said she'd be late, or how she seemed to avoid my gaze when she mentioned the dinner. I didn't know for sure, but I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to find out what was going on. I had to see for myself. I grabbed my coat and decided to drive to her office. If she was really working late, I'd at least know she was telling the truth. But when I pulled into the parking lot, her car was parked in the back. That was odd. Why would she park so far away when there were empty spots closer? My stomach churned as I scanned the area. Then I saw it. Nathan's car parked a few spaces away. My heart began to race and a cold chill ran down my spine. I told myself it was just a coincidence. Maybe he was just picking something up. But as I got out of my car and walked toward the building, I saw them. They were standing in the lobby, close together. Emily's hand brushed against Nathan's arm, and he laughed at something she said. I couldn't hear their words, but the body language was clear. There was something more than just family affection going on between them. I stood frozen, unable to move. I felt like the world had dropped out from under me. I had been right all along. I stood there in the rain, my body frozen in place, my heart racing in my chest. The scene in front of me, Emily and Nathan so close, their laughter and shared moment of intimacy, struck me like a thunderclap. I could hardly breathe. My thoughts scrambled, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I had never imagined something like this. I had never allowed myself to entertain the thought that my wife and my brother could betray me, not in the way they were now. I don't know how long I stood there, watching them through the glass doors, but when they finally pulled away from each other and Emily turned to leave, my legs finally worked again. I didn't know what to do or where to go, so I turned on my heel and walked back to my car. I drove home in a daze, the rain falling heavier now, the world outside the car blurring in my tear-filled eyes. Once inside, I sat in the dark of the living room, my mind whirling. What had I just seen? How long had this been going on? I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. I needed answers. But how was I supposed to confront her? Confront Nathan? My brother? I couldn't even imagine how this would go, how everything would shatter. I didn't know where to start. Emily came home hours later, the sound of the door opening breaking my trance. She stepped in, shrugging off her coat and glancing at me. "Hey, I'm home," she said, her voice light. Too light. I didn't say anything. I couldn't say anything. I simply stared at her, trying to keep the rage and confusion from spilling out all at once. My hands trembled as I looked at her, trying to find the woman I had married, the woman I thought I knew. "Are you okay?" she asked, sensing the tension in the air. I shook my head slowly, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "You were with Nathan tonight, weren't you?" I finally asked, my voice cold and controlled. She stopped, her eyes widening as she realized I knew. but she didn't answer me right away. She stood there for a long moment, as if weighing whether to lie or tell the truth. The silence between us grew unbearable, and I found myself almost wishing she would lie. That would have been easier. Instead, she slowly nodded. Yes, I was with Nathan. Her words were quiet, almost defeated, as if she had resigned herself to the inevitable confrontation. But it's not what you think. My heart skipped a beat. I wanted to shout, to scream, to demand to know what she meant by that, but I held my ground. Then, what is it, Emily? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you and Nathan have been hiding something from me. Something more than just catching up. What's going on? She took a step toward me, her expression faltering. I never meant for this to happen, I swear, she began, her voice trembling. It just happened. We didn't plan it. I didn't plan it. I stared at her, trying to piece together the fragments of the woman I had known for so long. How long, Emily? I asked, my voice shaking now. How long has this been going on? She closed her eyes for a moment, as though gathering the courage to speak. A few months, she admitted, her words hanging in the air like a death sentence. It started slowly. A few stolen moments, conversations that lingered longer than they should have. It was never meant to get this far, but we couldn't help it. I felt as though the ground had been ripped out from under me. A few months. How had I not seen it? How had I missed all the signs? The nights she came home late. The way she would avoid looking me in the eye. The strange distance that had grown between us. It all made sense now, but it felt like a punch to the gut. You and Nathan, I whispered, unable to fathom the betrayal. How could you do this to me, to our family? I don't know, Emily said, her voice broken. I didn't mean to hurt you. I love you, but somewhere along the way, I lost myself. And Nathan, he understood me in ways I didn't even realize. I never meant for things to go this far. But it's real, what we have. I could barely process what she was saying. The woman I had built my life with, the mother of my daughter, had betrayed me with my own brother. The thought was too much to bear. How could she? And how could Nathan? The man who had been my closest ally, my partner in crime, had turned into the very person who had shattered my trust. As if on cue, my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at it, and my heart dropped when I saw the name on the screen. Nathan. Emily noticed my reaction and immediately shook her head. Don't answer it, she pleaded. Please, just let me explain. But I couldn't stop myself. I picked up the phone and answered it, my voice shaking. Nathan, we need to talk. He didn't hesitate. I know, I'll be over soon. I hung up the phone, my mind spinning. I didn't know what to expect, but when Nathan walked through the door a few minutes later, I felt a surge of emotions I didn't even know how to handle. Anger, betrayal, confusion. The man who had always been my brother, my best friend, was now the man who had taken everything from me. Nathan stood in the doorway, his posture stiff, his face unreadable. I'm sorry, man, he said quietly, avoiding my gaze. I never meant for it to happen, but I can't undo what's been done. You can't undo it, I repeated, my voice rising. You've been sleeping with my wife for months, and you're telling me you can't undo it. What the hell, Nathan? What the hell is wrong with you? I don't know what to say, he muttered, glancing at Emily before looking back at me. I never meant to hurt you. I never wanted to come between you and Emily. But it happened. We got too close. And once it started, neither of us knew how to stop it. I wanted to scream, to punch him, to do anything that would make the pain stop, but I couldn't. Instead, I felt hollow, empty inside, like the core of who I was had been ripped out. My own brother, my own wife. The people I trusted most in the world had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Update. Hey, everyone. I know I promised an update. and it's been a bit longer than I originally planned, but things have been a bit crazy. Thank you for all the support and encouragement. It means more than I can express right now. So here's what's happened since the last post. The confrontation with Emily and Nathan was absolutely surreal. I could barely process what they were telling me. Honestly, I don't think I've fully wrapped my head around it yet. I spent hours just sitting in the living room, trying to come to terms with the fact that my wife and my brother had betrayed me in the worst way possible. The trust that I thought was unbreakable was shattered. Everything we had, everything we built, suddenly felt like a lie. The next day, I didn't know what to do. I couldn't bear to be in the same house as either of them. I went to a friend's house and just kind of shut myself off from the world. I needed space to think, to process everything. Emily called me several times, but I couldn't talk to her. Not yet. I needed time to breathe, time to gather myself before I could even consider what to say to her. As for Nathan, well, he came over that night to apologize, and I just couldn't handle it. We ended up having a huge argument, and things were said that I'm not proud of. I don't want to go into too much detail, because I'm still processing it all. But it was a mess. He's my brother, and yet, in that moment, I could barely look at him. The betrayal stings more than I thought possible, and I can't get over the fact that he never thought about how this would affect me. He keeps saying he didn't mean for it to happen, but honestly, I don't know if I can ever forgive him for what he did. As for Emily, she's still trying to reach me, but I'm not sure where to go from here. We've had a couple of conversations, but honestly, I don't think I can trust her again. She said she still loves me, but I'm having a hard time believing it. I don't even know if I can see her the same way anymore. She's been begging for forgiveness, promising that it was a mistake, that she made a terrible judgment call. But the thing is, I don't even know if I can trust her words. How do you come back from something like this? How do you rebuild after everything you thought you knew about the person closest to you is ripped away? Right now, I'm just taking things one day at a time. I'm still trying to figure out what the best course of action is. I've been talking to a therapist to help me process everything, but it's been slow going. I know I need to make decisions, but it's so hard when your world has been turned upside down. I haven't made any final decisions yet. I'm not ready to jump to conclusions or make rash choices, but I'm trying to focus on myself and my own well-being right now. I need to heal, and I need to figure out what I want going forward. I'm not sure if forgiveness is possible, or if I even want to try. But right now, it's too soon to say. Thanks again to everyone who has offered advice, support, or even just kind words. It's been really helpful. I'll keep you updated if anything changes. But I need some time to sort through all of this.